Yo, yo, yo. Yes, my people, we are back with another upload on the Football Biased. Joined again by my boy Thizo. I'm the homie Thebe. We're here to chat about the beautiful game. So if you're biased about the beautiful game, you know what to do. Get in touch, like, subscribe. As I said on the last one, even if you don't like it, just comment and say, this ish is whack. So I just know. So let's just, interact, get involved, man. So yeah, now it's like the international break and it sparked a little bit of a conversation that we're having earlier, bro. I think, firstly, what I want to pick up, man, are we enjoying these international games? Like, do you even watch them? First of all, let me start there.
Um, Select few games, bro. Not enough to warrant how frequent these international breaks are.
Mm.
I think there's been a few games that I've watched. Like I've watched the France games, I've watched the Spain games, but it's generally like if a big European team is playing another big European team, I'll
Mm.
watch. But there's so much fluff in between there, bro. That's just not interesting.
Yeah, I have to agree, man. Like, it's just, I feel like the introduction of the Nations League might have spiced things up a bit because now you can get like we got now Italy playing France or France playing Belgium and so on and so forth. So I think it maybe might have helped to play competitive teams against competitive teams for a quote unquote trophy being the Nations League. But overall, even outside of Europe, like, do you watch South Africa play? Like, even now, we're talking about South Africa was playing against Uganda and then now playing against South Sudan. Do you even watch as South Africans? Do you watch those games?
I think for me, yeah,
Mm.
I've been really impressed with the transformation in Bafana's football. So there's a bit more interest now than what there has
Mm.
been over the past few years. So now I watch a bit more. Um, but obviously the timing of the game is important. I think the Uganda game was better because it's on a Friday, it's in the
Yeah,
evening, much easier to catch. Whereas this game here is kind of in the thick of like the work day,
yeah, work life and all
so it
these
can be
things.
tricky. Yeah, it
Yeah,
can be tricky to watch, but still, bro, it's not enough, man.
it's
Like,
not enough.
let's
Yeah.
skip. Let's play club football, man. Have one international break every 6 months, two
Okay,
international breaks
okay,
in a
but
year.
okay, devil's advocate, right? Devil's advocate. I don't subscribe to this type of thing, but international breaks are needed because why we get international tournaments. So they need to qualify for these tournaments. They need to have qualifiers. They need to have all these types of things that are happening. So now the international breaks also help the international coaches with selection, blooding in new players, maybe new coaching methods, whatever the case might be. So do you not think it's useful, or how useful is that in today's like modern times? Because this it's boring. For me, plain and simple, it's boring.
Look, that's the thing, man. And when we look at these that are playing at a high level, even when you look locally, um, you're seeing primarily a team that's made up of Sundowns players. These players are used to playing together.
Mm.
You don't need 3, 4 games for them to really bed in and get used to each other, bro. That's what I'm saying. Once a quarter, it just feels like the season's just started. Why are we having an international break when the season has just started?
Facts.
It's
I,
not conducive for me. It's unnecessary, particularly when we look at in England, right, which is the most watched league.
yeah.
It's the league we watch the most. You know, it doesn't make sense that these players are playing 2 games, right, over
Mm-hmm.
this international break, and then they're about to play 3 games a week. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense at all. It's not sustainable, and teams have already been complaining about the
Mm.
number of games, and then you're congesting the schedule even more. Doesn't make sense, man.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, man, because now it adds on to I don't know how I feel about this, but it segues into the chat of like now the travel, now the injuries, like it increases the rate of injuries. So I don't want to use the Odegaard example because the Odegaard example is not like a muscular injury whereby, you know what I mean? It's exacerbated by fatigue or overplaying.
Sure.
You know, it's a contact sport. He had a contact with a player in the middle of the pitch. He just landed awkwardly out of that challenge and came off, you know, the worst one in that challenge. So I don't want to use that particular example to land this point. But if it wasn't for the international football, we wouldn't be getting these unnecessary injuries. And if we're being 100% honest, these players, their bread and butter is the club. You know, that's where they get their
Yep.
millions. They don't get the millions from the countries. You know, some of them
Nah.
even we've heard stories of people having to struggle to get money from their country's federations when it comes to playing games and
Exactly.
tournaments and all these things. So what do you make of the injuries, or where do you stand on that? Being an Arsenal fan, you're seeing Odegaard get injured. Do you think the international break specifically is to blame, or do you just think that's just collateral of the sport?
Look, I think it can happen. What I'm saying is that it's avoidable. Less
Mm,
games means less likelihood for injuries.
true.
And now we're talking about like Arsenal with regards to Erdegaard. But it could be anyone,
Yeah.
you know? There's games this evening. Anyone can suffer an injury. And you just hope that it doesn't happen to your club.
Mm.
But it can happen to anyone, man. I'm just saying, like, give these guys a break. Give them a
And
break. There's no need for them to be playing this many games
I agree.
because it can happen.
Mm.
If they're on the pitch, they can get injured.
And then where do you stand on the point? Because I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans going about why did because before the international break on the last game against Brighton, Odegaard had a knock on his ankle, even had like heavy tape and ice on it. So now Arsenal fans are going mad, like, why did they let him go? Meanwhile, he didn't get injured because Arsenal let him go. Like we said, he got injured in a fair tackle, just came off worst in that tackle. But when you look at an example like Chelsea, whereby Palmer wasn't really injured. We didn't hear any rumors of him being injured. And then all of a sudden, they get to the England international camp, and then they're like, Palmer pulls out due to injury. And then just yesterday, maybe today's date would be the 10th, right? Yeah, it's the 10th date of recording. So yesterday, there were pictures of Palmer training for Chelsea, you know, ready for this weekend.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, our player, right, who is maybe just as or even more important to what we're trying to do, you know, he gets injured in the
Yep.
international break. So where do you stand? Who do you think the onus is on to withdraw that player? And because I'm gonna have a leading question to that, where do you think Arsenal
Sure.
should have just been like, yo, Odegaard, you nearly got injured, chill, relax, you know what I mean? Because it's Nations League. Norway need to perform well in the Nations League to stand a better chance of qualifying for a major tournament,
Sure.
which they haven't qualified for a long time. And having players like Martin Odegaard and Erling Haaland, who have been in Team of the Year twice in a row in the Premier League, you understand? Like these guys have to be playing well for their countries. So as I was saying to you
Yeah.
earlier, Odegaard and Haaland, they play every game. So it's not an Arsenal, a Man City thing or wada. As a Norway manager, if I'm Norway manager, I'm playing my best players. I'm picking my best players. So who do you think the onus is on to be like, yo, you don't go to your country, chill, and also the backlash that comes from that, because the countries, if maybe Norway don't go on to win, then people are like, you didn't come to us, you only want to stay at Arsenal, you know what I mean? Where's your sense of what's the word I'm looking for, of your patriotism,
Um.
you understand?
Yeah.
So like
Patriot. Yep. Yep.
where's all that? Where do you stand in that chat, bro?
I think it depends on the role that you play in your international team. You
Mm,
know, I think when you made reference to the fact that Erdegaard and Haaland play every game, we're so because Erdegaard's the skipper, you know, at Norway. So there's no way where he's fit, no pun intended. There's no way he's fit
yeah.
and not playing, you know.
Yeah.
If he's fit enough to go, he's gonna go, especially given the fact that Norway are struggling to qualify for international tournaments. It makes sense. I think in the case of Palmer, there's kind of a frustration because it's just like he could be carrying a bit of a niggle, and it's just like you're probably not like gonna play anyway, or
Yeah.
you're gonna get rubbish minutes anyway. What's the point in going? You might as well just pull out and stay. So I think for me, it's less about whether you're doing it from a patriotic standpoint or whether you're doing like whether your club is pulling you out. I think it's about what role do you play in that system, and your health. Where you at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Erdegaard felt fit enough that he could play because he also played the previous game,
Mm.
without much issue. So I
Yeah.
think that's why he was good to start. So we can't look at the Brighton game and say, no, it's started there and he kept playing. You
Yeah.
know, there's medical teams in place and you know your body as well. You know, you're not going to force yourself into a situation where you can feel something could happen.
Mm.
So I think it's just unfortunate, man. Less games means less likelihood of injury.
I agree.
That's what
I
it
agree
comes
with that.
down to.
And then now, but we start getting into chats whereby a lot of players recently, I think Bernardo Silva came out with it last week, where he was saying stuff like the schedule. I don't really spend time with my friends or family. We're playing 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. Because literally, after this international break, we looked at the schedules. It's legit. Game 3 days, game 3 days. And then if you like Man City, who play and any team in England, you're playing in virtually four competitions at this stage. They have 1 day's rest before they play the Carabao Cup game. So now, I understand from that point of view, but do you think where do you stand? Are you part of the line where it says, "Yo, man, you guys get paid a lot of money. Just crack on and get it going." There's sports science. There's medication back then and now is very different. Even the squad sizes are different. Now you can use five substitutions because I fall somewhere in the middle whereby like yes, I agree, but you're playing for Man City. Because you're playing for Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, you are going to reach the quarterfinals to semifinals to finals of whatever competition that you are playing in. In the league, you're going to be fighting till hopefully the last 3 to 4 game weeks or whatever the case might be until the season ends.
Yeah,
So by virtue of
yeah,
that, you are getting paid the sum of money that the value that you are getting paid as opposed to then is very different. So now it's just about crack on, play. If you can't play, the stats will tell us. The body, the way the scanners and all these things, right? You also must have, like you said, they need to have some sort of discernment to say, I'm not healthy. Let me sit this one out and I'll be back next week. So that's where I fall. Like I don't know where I fall in between, but I do agree that like there's just too much football going on. And I love football, but I don't like too much football because now it ends up compromising the quality that we're watching. You understand?
exactly. And I think that's the exact point I wanted to make,
Mm.
that it will compromise the quality of the football that we're seeing because now you're going to ask players to like enforce their their feelings, their
Mm.
opinion, like to be like, yo, I've done too much this week. Next
Mm-hmm.
week I'm out, you know? And then now, if imagine trying to watch a City game where there's
Mm.
no Haaland, KDB, Bernardo Silva. Yes, City are one of the more fortunate clubs where they've got quite a bit of depth on the bench. It isn't the same experience for all the clubs, you
Yeah.
know? And this is barring injury. This is just rotation. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking with everyone healthy. It's not like it's unrealistic to expect that everyone's always gonna be healthy.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like there needs to be intervention before this whole thing comes to a head. Like we shouldn't wait for players to start boycotting because it's not the first time Bernardo Silva has expressed those feelings.
Mm.
And he's not the only one. They're saying it's too many games. Forget the social aspects, just from a health aspect. It cannot be healthy for you to be exerting yourself because there's also travel. It's not
Yeah.
like you're playing at your home stadium every
True.
week. You're traveling to different cities, sometimes different countries, for you to be able to play these games with very short stopovers, and then you're into the next game.
Mm.
Nah, for
But now
me, there
also,
has to be a lot.
But also somebody raised the point that I was watching on YouTube where they were like, okay, we hear your argument to say, yo, these elites, whatever the case might be, are putting too many games in the schedule. But the point that he made was like, your clubs are the ones agreeing to it. So go to your Sheikh Mansour and go tell him, like, yo, we tired, bro. Why do you keep like accepting, like now you accepted that we're gonna have extended games in the Champions League instead of 6 group games, we're having 8. And also now every game counts. Usually in the Champions League, if you win the first 3 or 4 games, your chances of going through are fairly high. So you can afford to,
Yeah.
rotate a team maybe in the last game or the second last game, whatever the case might be, depending on how the group is looking. So now you're in a position whereby come the 7th game, you understand you need to win that game either to make the playoffs
Yeah.
or to make your way into the last 16. So that's virtually more games, more intense games. Then you go and add, you understand, like you go and add the Carabao Cup and all of these things. Your guys are the ones, and then before the season begins, your club is flying you to United States, to Korea, to wherever, to Australia, to go and promote the brand, get money on board. So it's all a money play. So why don't you go to your club and go and chat to them? Because they're the ones essentially signing off on all these extra games being played, because why? They make more money. And then if they make more money, when you go and sign a contract, you make more money. You feel me?
Yeah, but I think there's also like, firstly, it's not just one team. You know,
Mm.
Arsenal or City or Chelsea
Yeah.
can't just decide, actually, our players have had it. You know, every decision that gets made is on a collective scale, you
Yes.
know. And while the teams at the top might be affected because they're involved in more competitions,
Mm-hmm.
the teams at the bottom like are excited by the additional revenue stream, you know? Like
True.
for them, it's just like, yes, this makes sense. This helps us. This is the difference between maybe of like 20, 30 million, you know, in
Facts.
income for some of these teams. And while that may seem minuscule to the bigger teams, for the smaller teams, it makes a lot of sense. So there's no way just the
Yeah.
big teams can be like, no, actually, we don't want to do this, you know? And that's why I say that the reform has to come from like the federation and not
Mm.
from the clubs, because the experience of the clubs is very different. It varies
True.
from club to club. So that's why I think it can't come from the clubs.
Yeah, I agree. But it's just essentially the point that they were trying to make was that the clubs have to sign off. UEFA can't come and say, yo, we're making a group stage of 8 games, blah, blah, blah. The clubs have to be like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm signing off on this, or whatever the case might be. But just to, I think that also segues because we're chatting about like player welfare and all those things.
Yeah.
Ben White with the England thing, right? Just to contextualize to someone who may not know, Ben White supposedly had a falling with one of the England coaches during a tournament, which resulted in him having to leave the tournament. And then now he's decided that he wasn't going to get called up for whatever reason. Maybe it's an issue with the coach. We don't know the ins and outs. We just know that he's decided to decline getting called up. And then I'm sad and a bit happy. With my Arsenal hats on, I'm happy because we have one less player having to travel and risk getting injured. On another hand,
Yep.
if I'm the player or I'm related to the player, I'm like, bro, like playing for your country is a big deal. Maybe he doesn't think of it that way, which he has his own prerogative to do so. But where do you fall? Do you think he might regret it? Because I've seen some people saying he's going to regret it. Play for your country is such a special thing. Do you think he's going to regret it, or do you think he's good by sticking to his guns, whether be it because of his own personal vendettas, or is it because maybe he might feel for my fitness, for me to give the best that I can every week and preserve my body to do this for the longest period of time? I feel I don't really want to play, and also when I go play, I still have to go travel. I still have to go do these things and end up getting benched by people that I supposedly think shouldn't bench me. So do you think he's right in feeling that way, or do you think he might regret it?
I think without wearing my Arsenal hat,
Yeah.
I support Ben White's decision because you're arguably one of the best, if not the best, in your position, right? And yet, even at your best, you're not even like considered. You're called up to make up the numbers because there would be uproar if you weren't included, but you're not really going
Mm.
to pay. Particularly in Southgate's system, where he
Mm-hmm.
made it very clear from early on that he has players that he feels are integral to his squad. So regardless of if they're even getting game time at their club, when it comes to England, England will be viewed in isolation. You
Mm.
know, and I think players need to use their discretion as well to say, look, I'm not gonna be purring and on form at my club and then go to travel with my international team and just sit on the bench. It has a massive like psychological impact on you, and it can even
Mm-hmm.
affect your game, you know, in the long run. You heard, I don't know if you heard Anthony Gordon
Yeah, yeah, I
speaking
heard him.
about
Yeah,
his Euro experience, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
It like it's a frustrating experience when you know what you believe, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously these are elite football players. They believe that they can come in and make a difference, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not being given the chance to. So why even put yourself in that situation, whereas you can be working at your club, getting better until you reach a point where you can see that, look, if I go to my international team, I know that I'm going to be a mainstay. I know I'm going to be a starter. I'm going to be integral, and there's no question about it. If that isn't the case, and there isn't a
Mm.
direct opportunity for that to become the case, I'd rather stay away. Which I think is
Yeah.
what Ben White's doing, because he knows, look now,
Mm.
bro, as much as we love Ben White, Trent's gonna play. And it makes sense that Trent plays.
True.
Why go and be second fiddle to Trent?
But I think
You
more
know?
so at the time, he wasn't like really solidified as the right back.
As a right back.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It was more of
yeah,
like, dude,
yeah.
like you playing Maguire, you playing an injured, half injured Stones, Gomez over me, and I'm playing, bro. Like I'm good. Like I'm good. Why aren't you playing me? So I hear it from that standpoint. And I think I'd like to see more players adopt
Week
such a
in, week
standpoint.
out.
Because
Yeah,
like you said, bro, I personally like
100%.
we didn't play football to an elite level. But I assume if
Sure.
we did, we would have loved to play for Bafana Bafana. Like loved to.
Of
Do you
course.
understand? But
Of
now
course.
we can't have those sort of, not everybody across the board has those aspirations. There's interviews where he did say like putting on the England shirt was one of the proudest moments of his life, let alone of his career.
Yeah.
But now when there's all
Yep.
these external factors start to come into it, you need to then make certain decisions. And that's where then he made the certain decisions. So I think I like it. I feel other players should also follow suit, not only like we said to preserve their bodies, but also to just just I don't want I protect myself, like protect my mental health, just
Mhm.
everything. You know what I mean? And then the last point before we close: do you think the way we feel about the international break and how we've been having this conversation? Do you think somehow it can be improved? Because I heard you earlier say something like maybe there's an international break every quarter. So do you feel maybe every quarter they play their international duties, have their qualifiers? So essentially, like it's a tournament away from a tournament, and then now from here, but also then like how do you then? Because I feel like with the international break, as I said earlier, it allows you to see certain players. Like now with Anthony Gordon, if it was every quarter, as you suggest, right? As an England manager, Southgate might not have seen that form to be like, yo, you on form. We're having an international break. Come through. Let's see how you blood in with the boys. Because it's more than just because they don't really have a lot of time to do tactics. So they need to build chemistry very much quicker than being tactically astute, which is why we saw in the Euros, like tactics, yes, do win to some extent, but then you need individual brilliance, you need team camaraderie. That is what then fuels you to then go on to win. Your tactics will take you so far because sometimes players are even tired by the time that they're playing these tournaments. They just come from grueling seasons. So you need a big squad because you might have to stretch that squad, get every single juice out of them. You know what I mean? So do you think it can be
Yeah.
improved? I don't know. I think the quarter thing might work in isolation. But when you start to strip it down, like I said, there's certain players that are going to slip through the cracks and not get the opportunities because by the time that you pick the team for that quarter, then other players are off form or whatever the case might be that you might have chosen at another stage.
And look, for the most part, you being called up is based on your club form anyway.
Yes.
You know, for the most part, I think England is one of the only teams that I can recall where it's just like even if you have no club form, you'll still get called up and you'll
Yeah.
still start. You know, for the most part, it's merit based. It's just
Yeah.
like you're cooking at your club, we need some of that at the international level. Come and do that for us too, you know? And I think because of that, for me, that's the only way. Use club form, and then when you have them for that period of time in that quarter, use that time. And if it means you have to use 11 different players the next time, like in the next quarter, then do that. Because for the most part, it'll even be a motivator for like players to be like, yo, I know selection is coming up. I know that I haven't really been cooking
Mm.
that first quarter, so I wasn't called up. Let me do better in this quarter so that when that time comes, I do get called up. You know, it's something to look forward to. Whereas now, I don't think so. I think players are doing it primarily out of obligation. But it's
Yeah.
if they were enjoying doing it, they wouldn't be complaining, bro. And they're complaining.
I agree, man. I don't know what needs to happen, but I think we both agree that something needs to happen because
Something.
at
Do
but at the end of the
something.
day, nothing is going to happen because it's been like this. The status quo has to be broken, and we've seen in football, it takes a while for the status quo to be
Yep.
broken, for new things to come in. It takes a long while. But hey, man, this was a good chat, bro. I really appreciate it. I think on our next chat, we'll see. You must lock in your predictions. Because the season is about to get hot, so we need to lock in our predictions, and then let's think of a forfeit, bro. We need a forfeit for whoever's predictions are wrong. But yeah, let's see how that goes, man. Otherwise, Thizo, bro, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Everybody, please like, subscribe, comment, everything. You know what I mean? Tell us it's good. Tell us it's bad. Tell me if I have a bug on my nose. I don't even know. Just get involved.
Do
Peace out,
something.
everybody.